Luigi's Mansion 3 has very quickly become one of my favorite Nintendo games ever. It has really good art style, really good music, really good level design, good pacing. Skyscraper mode is fun, and I enjoy using the poltergust against ghosts, but the floors are a lot of fun too. So I'm going to be ranking all 18 of them, but I'm not going to be going into too much detail about the bosses, since I'm going to make a separate video for them, more so just the mechanics and theming of the level. Number 18 is the basement. This is the first floor you explore in a game, and outside of fighting Steward, this bellhop ghost, and, seeing Iga at the lab, and the tutorial for Luigi, and getting the poltergust, which means this floor is pretty important to the story. My point being is that it just isn't that fun of a game floor, since there isn't really much to do it gameplay-wise. Number 17 is the Grand Lobby. The Grand Lobby looks all nice and happy during the daytime, but during the night, it's pretty spooky. There's no boss on this floor, and it is where you start to get to use the elevator since it's connected to the basement. So I suppose it's an important floor since it's technically the first one you explore in the game. It should, it's a pretty small one, and it's obviously a standard one for being early on. Number 16 is the rooftop. I'm classifying this as its own floor, and in this one you fight King Boo. Now, King Boo is one of my favorite bosses in the game, but there really isn't much to this floor out of King Boo at all. It's just getting to him that's what matters. I do like how you're at the very top of the Last Resort Hotel. You have these pretty neon lights that go along with the atmosphere, and you have this clapping music. But yeah, outside of the boss, it just isn't that good, considering how short it is. But it still is a really good boss, and I'll be talking about that in a separate video, like I said. Number 15 is the RIP Suites. Instead of the VIP suites, we have the RIP suites. This is where Mario, Luigi, Peach, and the Toads have their own bedrooms. Now, again, it looks nice during the day, but not so much at night. And this is where you encounter King Boo in the true evil side of Helen Gravely. So, yeah, it's not one of the best floors, but it's not bad. Number 14 is the Mezzanine. Now, the Mezzanine is a floor that has some really nice French music, one of my favorite songs in the game, and the Chef Soufflé boss is really good, for early on, and I like how you have to get rid of his frying pan to defeat him, and I also like the mouse with the elevator button chase, and it's also where you rescue Egad from the painting. Other than that, though, it doesn't have that much substance, but it's still a good floor, and this is where they start to get good. Number 13 is the Boiler Works. A lot of people hate the Boiler Works, but I like it. It's music, using the pipes for Luigi to go in, the whole theming they got going on, like all the junk you find in the sewers, the rubber ducky ride too, and I like the boss fight against Clem as well, and I never found it to be annoying, like other people said. Number 12 is the Great Stage. The Great Stage is one of the smaller floors, but the Amadeus Wolfgeist boss fight is really good. I like shooting bombs into the piano. It reminds me of the piano from Mario 64. And this boss shows that this guy is pretty crazy. I wish they called him Beethoven though. Other than that though, I do like this floor. It feels pretty fancy. Number 11 is the Unnatural History Museum. Now, the Unnatural History Museum had more potential, but all you're doing here is fighting the T-Rex skeleton and Ugg, the caveman ghost, and don't get me wrong, it's still one of the best bosses in the game. I just wish they could have done more with the museum concept, since natural history museums are some pretty cool places, and they had a lot of potential for it to be more creepy-wise. They didn't really do that, but I don't know. Number 10 is the Dancehall. Now, the Dancehall has the boss fight where you're fighting these goobs in these like hip-hop outfits, like these hoodies, and then DJ Phantasmagoria, which, although isn't a bad boss, just feels way too easy for being the second to last floor in the game, and also way too short, since, other than the boss, there really isn't anything here. But it still isn't bad. Number 9 is the Garden Suites. The Garden Suites is some pretty creepy music, and I like how each floor is themed off of, natural plant life, such as mushrooms, or vines, or ivy, or such. I like to use the chainsaw, not just for the boss fight, but also for the room it first appears in. And it's kind of weird they called this a floor, since it technically does have separate floors in and of itself with the staircase. And I like sliding from the beanstalk at the top, and Dr. Potter is a pretty cool boss too. Next up, we have number 8, the Hotel Shops. Now, the Hotel Shops is very early for in the game, and it's where things start to get really good. The boss fight against Kruger, who's basically kind of like Paul Blart, like the mall cop, it's pretty good. I like how you have to avoid the water gun with Luigi, since you have to fight him as Luigi, and obviously Luigi can't touch water. And I like having quick keys to get your way through the dress shop, the gift shop, the barber shop, and the jewelry shop, as well as a cafe too. I think that's pretty cool, and I like this forest music as well. It's a pretty nice atmosphere too, and I like how there's just a shop inside the Last Resort Hotel. Number 7 is a Spectral Catch. Spectral Catch is a pretty short 4. It's where you introduced into the Super Socket, which allows you to use the Poltergust G100 like really powerfully. It's rarely used in the game, however, and this is the only time where you actually need it to progress. But I do like using it to suck up the ship. And then you have the part where you fight the boss, Captain Fishhook, on this giant pirate ship, who uses this giant shark. Definitely one of my favorite bosses in the game. I really do like it. It's the best one so far at this point in the game. However, I think that the rest of the 4 could have been a bit longer, done more with the concept, like Unnatural History Museum. Still pretty good though. Number 6 is the Tomb Suites. Now, the Tomb Suites is a really big 4. It's where you fight Cersei, this Cleopatra ghost, and she definitely isn't one of my favorite bosses in the game, since her attack patterns can feel repetitive, and you might not know what to do with them, like me, and I felt like her just random bump in difficulty just wasn't that fair. I do like the puzzles you find in a pyramid in this one, and the sand physics were played with in a really cool way. Seriously, this feels like an actual pyramid to explore. And it's a really good one too, kind of like the Scorching Sandpaper Desert from Paper Mario the Origami King, which is also another one of my favorite Nintendo Switch games. Number 5 is Castle McFrights. Castle McFrights is only the 6th floor, so of course it's early, but this is when 4s get really, really good. Even better than, say, Hotel Shops, which is still really good for being that early. Now, Castle McFrights is one of the longest 4s in the game so far, and you do a lot of puzzles involving avoiding bows and arrows, even getting yourself out of a cage dungeon at some point, which is really cool. You have to utilize Luigi. Then there's the boss against King McFrights, and King McFrights is a pretty cool guy, and I like how he uses a giant horse to get around, but it's not an actual horse, of course. It's a really good boss fight to go along with a really good 4. And I like the music too, it definitely fits the scenery. And I also like how there are a bunch of cardboard cutouts for the ghosts and the audience too. Number 4 is Paranormal Productions. Paranormal Productions is another 4 that's very creative, but also kind of segmented. You have a castle set, like a movie set. You have a well one, which is based on 7 Days, of the horror movie of all things. You have one where you're really tiny and there's this big spider in a cardboard box. And then there's one which is like a firefighter scene. I like how they're all distinct and you have to use your puzzles and moving through the televisions. That's a reference to Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, where you use the pixelator there. It's really cool. And then there's Morty, who's a really nice ghost. And you can be pretty friendly towards him, and he's actually nice to Luigi. And then there's the cool Godzilla fight, where you fight a goob dressed as Godzilla. And it looks like you're in the city, and it looks small compared to the rest of you, because it actually is small. Morty's a pretty cool guy. He's one of my favorite characters in this game. This is a really good 4. And I like the music too. There's even a Punch-Out reference. Number 3 is the Fitness Center. Now, the Fitness Center is one of the last 4s in the game, but unlike the Dance Hall, it lives up to the expectation of being one of the last ones. In this 4, you have things like a yoga studio where you have to move certain pads around. Then you have things like the treadmill and other places, such as the swimming pool, where you fight Johnny Deepend, who's this big bulky ghost. And you have to avoid his water spouts and shoot volleyballs at him. You even enter the pool once it's drained and you get stuck in the drain, which is pretty cool. I really like this one, and it feels kind of quiet and a bit more relaxed compared to some other later 4s in the game, but it's still really good, and each of the rooms here feel like they be in an actual gym, which I really like. Number 2 is the Twisted Suites. Now, I didn't expect to love this 4 as much as I did, but I guess I did, if I would have put it at number 2. Now, in this 4, you have parts of, like, you'd find to expect in a magic house. You have things like playing cards. There's, a ghost stuck in a water tank. You also have a room that even flips upside down, and they all get mixed-matched. And you can even wear a top hat too, a big top hat, which is pretty funny. And then there is the boss fight against Nikki and Lindsay and Ginny. And by the way, their initials, NLG, is a reference to Next Level Games, the developer for Luigi's Mansion 3, which is pretty cool. I really like the boss fight against them. I really like the whole shuffle concept. You have to guess who the right sister is, and the top hats that spin around, and they even shoot cards at you, which is pretty cool. I like the music too. Definitely one of my favorite 4s. Number 1 is the Master Suites, the last real 4 in the game if you don't count the rooftop. Now, this is my favorite boss in the game, Helen Gravely. And Helen Gravely is a really cool character because you can see all these paintings of her with King Boo and statues dedicated to him. She's obviously way too obsessed with him, and she wants him to fall in love with her. That's probably not going to happen. But I really do enjoy her boss fight, and how she looks a bit more evil without her ghost makeup. And you even have to use Luigi to turn on certain switches underneath the boss stage. This is where you save Mario, and there's a sweet moment where Luigi and Mario are hugging. Speaking of sweet, you have the rest of this floor. You have the master bedroom, the bathroom, some pretty cool puzzles in both of them. There's also a library, and there's even like a drawing room too. Yeah, I really like this floor. It's definitely my favorite one, and it's always a really fun one to visit, and I really like how the music here is the title theme. Thank you.